What's up, guys, and welcome to episode 5 of our Clone Wars Season 7 breakdowns. Today we're talking about Without a Trace. This is the first episode that I'm coming in almost completely fresh. I have no idea what's going to happen in this arc, which I'm grateful for because I knew basically all of the Bad Batch. But yeah, we're finally on the same page.
Yeah.
So there was some stuff that they had talked about for this arc at the Ahsoka's Untold Tales panel back at Star Wars Celebration 2016. They said that there were 3 Ahsoka stories that were going to finish up the series, and one was this, Ahsoka's Walkabout. One is the Siege of Mandalore, which we're going to get, and the other is called like Return to the Jedi, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, what did you think of this episode?
I really liked it. I am just happy to be getting new Ahsoka content, and so originally this was supposed to be a love interest?
Nix Okami. So that's kind of what they talked about in the Celebration panel. Instead of 2 sisters, Ahsoka was going to meet a guy named Nix, and I was rewatching the panel before writing my review, and Dave really dances around the idea that he was a love interest.
Sure.
More, Ashley kind of leaned into it that like, yeah, Ahsoka was going to get a boyfriend, and Dave was like, I don't know if I'd say that, but he also admitted to being kind of like Ahsoka's dad, where he's like, he's not ready for her to date.
Yeah. Well, I'm really happy that they changed it, and now it's her and 2 other women. Just because after everything that's happened with Ahsoka and her friends that may or may not have betrayed her, she is in dire need of some girlfriends.
Yeah. I think that introducing a love interest this late in the game in the final season does feel unnecessary. Like back when it was going to be part of season 7, which wasn't going to be the end of the series, it's like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's explore this. But I think that is probably the main reason they made the change. I do trust that there's a story reason that Dave has for making that change, and it's hard to guess what it is based on just 25% of the story so far.
Yeah, it would just be a lot to throw in at the very end. But it's also like, not only is this giving her a chance to connect with other females that are like around her age, but to connect with the people of Coruscant that, I guess to her shock, are very different.
Yes, I think that's what a lot of this arc is going to be about. We see that the Martez Sisters, they don't really like the Jedi, and I imagine that is the attitude around the board on level 1313, where they're just trying to get by. It's kind of like I got a very slight Game of Thrones vibe, where it's like all of these big houses are fighting over power, and like it doesn't matter who's in control, the little people always suffer.
Yeah. And
you get this sense that the Jedi are super out of touch with the problems of normal people.
Yeah, they mention, or she mentions something about the Jedi and their war, and she comes back with like, well, they didn't start it, they're defending people, but then she comes back with like, they've forgotten about us, so we're to believe, I guess, that the people, at least down in 1313, is that a level?
Yeah.
Yeah, down in that level, assumed that the Jedi have just abandoned them.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to forget, or hard to remember sometimes, that like so much of the Star Wars story has been told through the lens of the Jedi. It's like they are kind of the elite of the galaxy. Like Ahsoka's had a cushy life. I mean, she's had a dangerous life, but when she's at the Jedi Temple, she doesn't have to worry about anything. Like, this is the first time she doesn't have a safety net. This is like her leaving her parents and going out on her own and finding out what the real world is like, and I have to earn money, and all I have is this speeder bike, and
that even that fails her.
Yeah, it's all she had. But then fortunately she meets these people who are, and this is something I'm excited about for the rest of this arc. They seem like good people, but their methods are questionable, and it's kind of this thing where like Ahsoka urges them, don't sell those droids. We don't know what they're going to be used for, but it's like, well, we would like to eat this week, so
right. We need the money, and they used that money to pay off that guy that was giving him trouble, and she's gonna learn very quickly, I think, how different life is down there and how people like that have to do stuff like that to survive.
I mean, Ahsoka is undoubtedly a good person, but we see her in Star Wars Rebels say, I am no Jedi. And I think that this could be part of that path where she sees that not everything is black and white, light and dark, Jedi and Sith. Like, there are hard decisions that need to be made sometimes. And I think that's probably going to be what she learns through the Martez sisters.
Yeah. And I was wondering the whole episode, like, oh, is she going to use a lightsaber? Is she going to use the Force? Because at one point she kind of fights off those goons.
And I believe, and it's been a while since we've watched season 5. We meant to watch the end of it before these episodes happen, and we didn't.
Yeah.
I believe she leaves her lightsabers behind at the Jedi Temple.
Oh, okay.
But yes, she is like right now like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be openly a Jedi because people aren't the biggest fans.
Yeah, and I do like how they handled it at the end there, where she does use the Force to then save her, but I feel like only that little kid saw, and I thought that was really cute.
Yeah.
And like she kind of just popped her head up. So it's going to be maybe the next episode. It'll be revealed to these two sisters that, because like I don't know how long they can really dance around that fact.
And I hope it doesn't take too long, because that's something that I felt that this episode was fine. It gave some good setup. I like the two sisters, Trace and Rafa, and I was more just like, okay, I really want to dive into Ahsoka having to make these morally gray decisions and do shady stuff to survive, but also she has a strong moral center, and like they don't like the Jedi. How are they going to react when they find out? I think that that's all good stuff that I'm excited to explore. It just didn't quite get there in this episode.
Yeah. I always say that Ahsoka is the most well-rounded Jedi because she's been taught her entire life by several different Jedi throughout her training, and now she's being taught by people in the real world. That
reminded me of a line I really liked where Trace asked how she learned to fight, and she said, "My brother taught me." It was like, "Aww." Sad.
Yeah.
I do think I saw that the writer for this arc is the same guy that wrote Ahsoka's Exodus from the Jedi. So, like, I have faith that this is a story that will build just like that one did. Mm-hmm. It just felt like a transitionary episode. It felt like kind of the first episode of the Bad Batch arc, where it's like, we got to meet all these new characters, and then I felt that arc improved as it went along. So yeah, I think this one will be similar. What I am curious about, knowing that there were originally going to be 3 Ahsoka stories, and we're getting 2 of them for sure, I'm wondering if they're going to try to cram the 3rd one in. And I wouldn't mind it if they did, because that one was supposed to be about Sidious trying to gain control of like a vault beneath the Jedi Temple through this like Sith temple or something that was underneath the Jedi Temple, which is stuff that's been commented on in books and everything. So I would really like to see her kind of fight that. I think that's probably too much story for these 4 episodes, but I was like, oh, that'd be cool.
They might try to concentrate more on Maul and his part in the rest of this season. But, I mean, that sounds like a cool story. So, is it the Sith Temple that supposedly has been corrupting the Jedi Temple this whole time, just like really, really slowly, or is that just a theory?
That's a theory I have thrown out. It's more, I think they were talking about how it was meant to be just this idea that in the real world, during like the Crusades and stuff, mosques would be torn down and then churches would be built on top of them. And so it's like the idea that the light side is trying to bury the dark side and just like it never really goes away. So I think that it potentially could play a part. They do something like that in Star Wars Resistance as well. Kaz and company discover like a Jedi temple, and beneath it's a dark side temple.
Yeah, just shove that down. And
just hide that. Sweep that under the rug. It's fine. And it's never fine.
It's like burying poop when you go camping and then planting a flower on top.
I think that works, though. I don't know if that's a great metaphor.
I'm not good at metaphors.
Anything else? I guess we should talk about the theme of the episode. When there is no path in front of you, create your own. Which is, Ahsoka was on the Jedi path, and now she's not, and she has to create her own way. It's kind of like we recently talked about Rey and how she has a yellow lightsaber now, and I kind of think that means she's going to rebuild the Jedi Order, but her own way, and not necessarily the way that the old Jedi did it. And I think Ahsoka is kind of on a similar journey where, she is no Jedi, but she's close. And I think a lot of us would consider her to be more Jedi-like than most of the Jedi of the prequels. I do. Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear what Dave Filoni has to say about that line and how Ahsoka feels about what she is, who she is, if she just wants to be known as Ahsoka and not have that title of being a Jedi, obviously having said that. But I would really like to pick his brain about like who she thinks she is as a person.
Well, I think you're right. I think she probably just sees herself as Ahsoka. She's not defined by the Jedi Order. But in my eyes, she's like what the Jedi should be striving for. I think she's a good example of what they should be, which is interesting.
Yeah. She's kind of like, for me, she's kind of like the Bendu revisited, but I mean, not quite so mythical, mystical.
She can't turn into an angry storm cloud.
No.
We know of.
Not yet.
That we know of.
Yeah. If her eventual fate is to become the new official Bendu, I think that would be kind of cool. But until then, I'm really excited for this story.
Yeah, I am looking forward to how this all plays out. I think there's a lot of potential, and the setup had me intrigued. It was just like, I think the way that this series is kind of go with these 3 arcs, it's like it builds and builds and builds, and then we have to kind of like start and build again. So it's like, I really liked the last episode of the Bad Batch arc, and now it's like, okay, slow things down, build back up. Yeah. So it makes sense. And
I'm just excited for Ahsoka to have some female camaraderie around. She kind of had Padme, but, Padme was busy with her own stuff.
And Barriss just burned her.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying. Like, Barriss was kind of her friend and then super betrayed her. So she needs a friend or two.
It's like the only other people around her, Aayla Secura sometimes, and Luminara Unduli, who is like, so she was like, well, I guess our Padawans are dead in that one episode. Like, yeah. Luminara is not someone you really want to hang with, I don't think.
Not really the matronly type.
Well, I think that's it for this week's episode. Let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
And consider checking out our Patreon page where we are doing audio commentaries for all of these episodes. The Bad Batch arc is done, and we'll be doing this one as soon as we can. But as always, thank you for watching. May the Force be with you, and we hope you're staying safe and healthy out there.
Wash your hands.